We now move to our very interesting plenary session 2. And our plenary session 2 would be on future of global cybersecurity cooperation, reflecting on key dimensions. It is absolutely an honor and a privilege for me to introduce our distinguished speakers who will share their perspective from international collaborations and policy leadership. May I request you all to kindly join me as I invite our esteemed, very distinguished panelists onto the stage. May I begin by inviting Director, Government Initiatives and Global DSCI, Mr. Atul Kumar, who also is the moderator of the session, to kindly join us onto the stage. I now invite Second Secretary, Oceans, Emerging Tech and Digital Public Goods, the Royal Norwegian Embassy, Ms. Philippa Sophia. Warm welcome to you, Ms. And may I now invite on stage Second Secretary and Consul, Political and Economic Section Head, the Embassy of Philippines, Ms. Melissa Antelan. Warm welcome to you. And please, ladies and gentlemen, kindly join me as I invite the Senior Trade Commissioner, Global Affairs Canada, Mr. Aladdin, to kindly join us onto the stage. Very warm welcome to you, distinguished speakers of this session. Without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin with this very interesting session, which is something we have been looking forward to. And may I request the moderator of the session, Mr. Atul Kumar, to kindly take over. Over to you, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. This is going to be an interesting session. We are talking about cybersecurity, and cooperation is the key. That is something we are discussing since morning, or even I'll say since yesterday. And that becomes more important when we are talking about the global ecosystem and typically cyber without any boundaries. The global cooperation becomes one of the, I'll say, mandatory aspect to improve and strengthen the posture, global posture of cybersecurity, so that we'll have more trust and more inclusion and more benefits to the society and the whole ecosystem. And with that intent, we thought of planning this conversation, and we got friends from Philippines, Canada, and Norway to talk about their experiences, how they are dealing with this, and how we can improve the collaboration and cooperation at the international level in cybersecurity. Just to give some context here, looking at the way digitization has taken shape across the globe and how digital and physical, sometimes we call it phygital actually, has come together, IT, OT is converging, it's creating a lot of complexity. And on top of it, whether we are talking about AI, quantum, Gen AI, and so on and so forth, the whole emerging technologies ecosystem, which is again adding to a lot of complexities at the same time, resulting in a big way in terms of positive impact in the society. Overall international dependency has increased significantly, looking at the supply chain matters, the cyber supply chain or digital supply chain, that has expanded and became more complex. And that's why this cooperation becomes more and more important and more complex. So here we are going to deliberate that. And to start, I'll start with Norway actually. And as you are a big proponent of open standards and you are focusing a lot on public, digital public goods. So on these things, how do you see this aspect is changing the global cooperation landscape and your views and your experience in this domain? So I'll request you to initiate that, and then we'll move to our other panelist.
Thank you very much, Atul, and thank you so much for having us here for this panel, which we've all been looking very much forward to. And just to share a little bit about the mentioned history that you've pointed out in the sense of Norway's support to open source has a long history, in fact, taking us back a couple of decades from when Norway started its digitalization efforts domestically, where we had some lessons learned, which can be summarized as build once, build well, and if possible, build in open source, because then it can be reused and it can be shared. And this is what we have actually followed up in the multilateral as well. And I'm very pleased also that we have a long collaboration with India in this field, because India, with its amazing digital public infrastructure, has unlocked so many economic benefits and societal changes which can be shared globally and which is being shared globally. So when looking at cybersecurity aspects, actually Norway has pursued a very multi-stakeholder kind of approach to this, because with the open source and digital public goods agenda, we actually took it to the UN along with a lot of good partners in the field in 2019 to develop what is called the Digital Public Goods Alliance. And this is, of course, bringing together governments, also UN agencies, and a lot of different institutions. There is the Indian ISPRIT, which was also a co-founder. And essentially, the Digital Public Goods Alliance set out a standard for what can be considered a digital public good, including the cybersecurity standards. Because trust is at the core of using open source, of course. And what we've seen is actually that at the outset, and if done well, open source can be a very secure alternative to some certain proprietary systems, namely because of the many eyes principle. The source code is open, then many people will be following it. Following it continuously and being able to discover any vulnerabilities that might be able to be patched more rapidly, let's say. And so in a sense, you don't have to wait for Patch Tuesday for something to be patched up, because everyone will be there 24/7 to patch it up. And yeah, just to say that we see a lot of good examples of this. When you think about Linux kernel, for example, with a vibrant community supporting it, then it works well. But the tricky part is also that open source has its pitfalls if the community supporting the solutions are too small. Or underfunded, which is actually the paradox of the open source, let's say, agenda, that the trust, or people don't trust open source if the users of the open source solutions are too few. Once you have a bigger adoption of that solution, it becomes more trusted as well. So I think that is a very, interesting aspect that Norway has been pursuing, both domestically but also in the multilateral.
Sure, thanks for sharing that. And I'll pick up that word trust, and the core is the trust. And probably we'll double click that side. And overall, building that global cooperation is, at the end of the day, it's going to result in more enhanced and increased level of trust in the ecosystem. Probably we'll double click that side further. But I'll move to you, Melissa. And looking at the ASEAN as a region, you have quite a diverse level of maturity in terms of cybersecurity preparedness in this region. And then regional cooperation becomes a very key to this improving the cybersecurity preparedness in different countries and the whole region. How do you see this dynamics evolving there? And if you can bring that emerging tech perspective as well, because largely we are talking about emerging tech and cyber together in general. So your views on that.
Okay, thank you very much for that question, Atul. So just a step back, ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is a country comprised of 11 member states. Timor-Leste just joined this year. So indeed, we are a regional organization with differing development levels and differing infrastructure in terms of AI and cybersecurity. But we've come to realize that we're only as strong as the weakest link in ASEAN. So we work best when we work hand in hand, and to ensure that capacities are beefed up. So what we do is we have different cybersecurity centers. We have one, an ASEAN Singapore's Cybersecurity Center for Excellence, another one at ASEAN Japan, another cybersecurity center. And the purpose of that is to ensure that the capacities of countries are, or rather, the cybersecurity partners from developed countries could pass on their knowledge to other countries like my country, the Philippines, so that we don't need to start from scratch. And in that way, then the region could benefit as a whole, because as you know, cyber technology, AI, knows no borders. There's no sovereignty. So we realize that now, more than any other time, we need to cooperate globally. So that's just one aspect. In fact, ASEAN has it's called this ASEAN Cybersecurity Framework, and it has 4 thrusts. One is beefing up national capacities of all member states of ASEAN. Second would be on establishing general norms. This is to ensure that there's trust, as Philippa said earlier, to ensure that there's trust in the systems of other ASEAN member states. Third would be conducting joint drill exercises, which is really important to also to develop trust in each other's capacities and systems. And finally, the last one would be protecting critical infrastructure. So ASEAN has, so we were just talking earlier during the pre-panel discussion that the world has changed so much in the last 3 years. We don't know what the world will look like 3 years from now or 20 years from now. It's unimaginable. But ASEAN is trying to catch up. We have come up with the ASEAN Cybersecurity Cooperation Strategy. So it's in the second iteration now from 2021 to 2025, and it will have another iteration after this year to come up with various strategies to try to catch up with the pace of what AI has done. So this year, next year in 2026, the Philippines is the incoming ASEAN chair, and my president, President Marcos, announced recently that AI will be at the heart of our chairmanship priorities. So the theme of the chairmanship is navigating the future together. And in that, ASEAN has 3 pillars. One is the security pillar, second is the economic pillar, and third is the social cultural pillar. In all 3 pillars, we would like to make sure that all ASEAN member states work well together to develop ethical use of AI, to learn together. I think that comes down to ensuring that all ASEAN member state nationals would have equal capacities, because this new technology has come to us very quickly, but a lot of us are not equipped with the right knowledge, with the right education on how to use it ethically, on how to use it well, and what our responsibilities are, and what AI is capable, what we are all capable to do because of this. So I think that's we will try to at least make sure that for ASEAN, at least, this is a priority for everyone else.
Sure, thanks, Melissa. And
Thank
again,
you.
the trust is at the core again. And there could be different ways of doing it. It could be center of excellences or joint exercises that you have mentioned. There could be different ways to achieve that level of trust, an enhanced level of trust. But yeah, at the end of the end objective is to build that kind of ecosystem where we can have, I'll say, the trust level where we can exchange things and we can achieve the larger good. Here, another aspect that you have touched upon is the cooperation at the regional level, and wherever we have sort of diverse maturity level, it becomes responsibility of each one of us to nurture that ecosystem as well. Because as initially I said, there's no boundary attached to the cyber ecosystem. Something happening in my neighborhood can impact me as well. And here it becomes like obvious responsibility to collaborate and support the other geographies and economies for enhancing their cybersecurity. But yeah, another aspect that you have talked about in terms of emerging tech, the AI, and that I'll pick up with you, Aladdin, if you can share. And Canada has been a proponent of responsible AI and all, and ethical use of AI. So from that point of view, how do you see the global governance is taking shape? And how can we address this dual use nature of AI and many of those emerging tech? So your views on that, how this diplomacy and the cooperation is taking shape in this aspect?
Namaste. Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us today. Thank you for the question. Very much appreciated. As we discussed also, very happy to be on this panel today. As we have seen in the last few months, India and Canada have been re-engaging at a very fast-paced level. And we are, as we see on the world stage, we saw the G20, the G7 also in Canada, both the Indian Prime Minister and the Canadian Prime Minister are re-engaging, and AI is part of that re-engagement at the very highest level. We are preparing to participate in the India AI Summit that will take place in India in February. Thank you also for that question. It is a critical question. Canada's perspective is that responsible AI isn't just an ethical choice. It's an economic imperative. We see global governance evolving away from abstract principles towards concrete, interoperable safety standards. We recognize that legislation moves slower than technology, and that's what we see. We have to keep pace with the technology that's evolving. We were talking about the law before, talking about the policy, how to keep up with the policy. That is why we introduce a voluntary code of conduct for generative AI, which major players like Canadian BlackBerry and Cohere adopted. This serves obviously as a bridge to allow us to manage dual-use risks now while finalizing comprehensive frameworks like, of course, AI, Artificial Intelligence, and Data Act. Looking forward, with the launch of our new AI Safety Institute, CAISI, last year we see a future where governance is built on international collaboration, creating a shared safety baseline that allows innovation to cross borders freely. As we mentioned, it's not in one country, it's global, provided it meets those, of course, rigorous standards.
Sure, thanks. And actually, it's interesting to see that our diplomatic ties are now again reinstated, and both the High Commissioner from Canada and India are reinstated to their offices. And I hope that India and Canada, along with our friendly nations, are coming together and looking at the global cooperation in cyber. Looking forward to that aspect. But I'll have a follow-up question with you, Aladdin, on this. How do you see that Canada is approaching the current geopolitical and the competition which is evolving in the ecosystem, and especially around the emerging tech? And how this diplomacy and, I'll say, the cooperation, larger the ecosystem, larger cooperation in the diplomatic space is giving a shape to this enhanced level of trust and enhanced level of cooperation in these areas?
Thank you again. As we all mentioned, trust is the most important thing, and technology advancing so quickly, the risks that are inherent. Cooperation, we see it at the UN, that was mentioned before. Canada is leading with numerous countries that effort on the multilateral stage. Canada was also the lead for the G7 in this year, ending in December, and we see that the AI has been at the center of this government, the Canadian government. We're looking at different initiatives. We were talking earlier between our different companies, also not only at the government stage, but also the Canadian government has put close to $2.2 billion in the 2024 budget for everything AI. We now have, for the first time, a minister of AI in Canada, so we're very pleased about that. So that's just happened in the last 6 months. So a number of collaborations at all levels, of course, negotiating with the EU. Just at the last G20 was announced that we'll have an FTA, a free trade agreement, a CEPA, between India and Canada. So other levels of course, AI is going to be included in that frame of the FTA. So very pleased, at very different levels, as I mentioned, with the EU, of course, with Norway being very close to the EU, so negotiating directly with the Philippines at different levels also, collaborations, companies, research centers, and also Canada's pretty much in there. With India growing, last year has been a record year between our two nations, exports of course, goods, but record year also in services, and we're going to see that growing in the coming years as well. Thank you.
Perfect. And those initiatives like having AI minister and this voluntary code of conduct, those things can be a reference for a lot of countries to look at and have their own such setups in place. And probably that can become a trigger point to establish those diplomatic ties between those AI ministers, or similar kind of entities. I'll pick up that AI thing and come back to you, Flipa. So from your vantage point, how can countries bridge the trust gap? And this is a sensitive areas while we talk about the diplomatic negotiations and again the diplomatic aspect around these things, cyber norms or similar other engagements that's happening at the global level around responsible AI, whether it's the cyber norms. How do you see this and where you see things are changing, what we should be doing?
Thank you very much for the question. And I think from a Norwegian perspective, trust and maintaining trust in a very changing, rapidly changing world and in AI development in particular, the adoption of new technologies starts firmly with rooting it in existing international laws. So that's Norway's principled position at the outset. We have international laws that apply in cyberspace and will also apply in the application of AI. And while applying those international treaties and existing laws, we need to approach it with a multi-stakeholder approach. And I mentioned that in my initial statement as well. And that is actually what was at the core of the Internet Governance Forum that was hosted in Oslo this year in June. It actually focused very much on ensuring that the internet remains open, safe, and free for all to use. Unless we do that, we lose everyone. I mean, if we start looking into data and internet fragmentation and people breeding distrust in the systems that uphold this whole system, then that's one of Norway's worries. And that's exactly why we took on this role as host for the Internet Governance Forum. And I'm very happy to see that also India bringing forth the AI Impact Summit now is bringing trusted AI as one of the working groups. Within the field of AI in particular, Norway has also just this year launched the Norwegian Center for Trustworthy AI, TRUST for short. And it's a dedicated national research center which is looking into building trustworthy AI across sectors, making sure that it's accurate, interpretable, fair, inclusive, safe, sustainable, governed properly, and deployable at scale. And there we come back to the open source elements as well, because I mean, with open source you can really reach a large scale very quickly. So it is actually a large consortium of all Norwegian research institutions, universities, the public sector, but also private sector. And I think that is very, very important, looking into it with a PPP approach, because or else, I mean, we're not creating let's say, consolidated base of trust as we go forward. Norway, as well as our co-panelists, look at cyber from a very regional perspective, of course, with close collaboration with our partners in NATO, EU, OSCE, OECD, but also at the UN. So we firmly want to keep those conversations at the UN and make sure that international law doesn't fragment just because things are changing in cyberspace. So thank you.
That's true, and this fragmented cyber ecosystem and cyber norms, that's many times leading to land where we are not coming on the same ground. So definitely, it's a complex one, but yeah, these initiatives are definitely going to help us a lot. I'll come back to you on the critical infrastructure side, but before that, I'll come to you, Melissa, and looking at the current geopolitical situation and specifically Philippines' geographical positions. You must be facing a lot of attacks, and each one of us are facing a lot of attacks from our adversaries. So how do you see diplomacy is helping out to mitigate those and navigate those kind of scenarios? Because cyber attacks are common to everyone.
Thank you for that question, Atul. And indeed, you're right. So given the Philippines' place in the world, given Philippines' geography, located close to major sea lanes, the Philippines is prone to major attacks, cyber attacks, particularly in our defense and national security sector. So attacks on command centers, command systems, surveillance tools, and maritime monitoring platforms weaken our ability to protect our territorial waters and respond to security challenges. In addition to that, we also face another a systematic threat to our financial markets. So as the economy grows and becomes more digital, cyber attacks on banks, payment systems, stock exchanges, etc., could and do disrupt economic activity. And with more and more Filipinos using mobile phones, it's a very mobile mobile phone friendly country. So these scams and identity frauds are increasing distrust in the system. So we face daily cyber threats regularly because of our fast-growing digital economy. Our Philippine National Computer Emergency Response Team, or CERT-PH, saw 57,000 threats and 3,000 plus incidents in just 2 years, affecting government systems, universities, and telecom companies. So another thing that we're facing, just like India and a lot of countries now, are AI-powered scams. I'm sure I don't need to elaborate. Everyone's familiar with this. So because of how easy it is to use this scam, and coupled with the fact that a lot of people are not equipped with knowledge to detect these scams, a lot fall prone to this. So what do we do to combat this? We have national laws like the Data Privacy Act and Cybercrime Prevention Act. We're still coming up with a comprehensive cybercrime act in the Philippines. But also what we do is we cooperate globally and regionally. Regionally, I discussed this earlier. And on the global aspect, so the Philippines is a signatory to the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. And also, we signed just this year the UN Convention Against Cybercrime. So we believe that working, the Philippines, one of the major thrusts, it's a rules, we believe in the rules-based order. So we believe that global cooperation is the key because cybercrime knows no borders, and we alone, by ourselves, could not combat it. We need to cooperate globally. So this is where diplomats come in. Right now, there are a lot of efforts to try to codify, but it's very difficult because the nature of cybercrime, nature of AI, is unlike any other that we've faced in the past. So unlike conventional areas of law, like law of the sea, for instance, it's easy to codify that. The ILC, the International Law Commission, has worked on it and came up with it. But for cybercrime, which has developed very recently at a rapid pace, how do you codify something that changes the next day and would become a different beast? So we still believe that if we put our heads together, then we could come up with something. That global cooperation is a key. Another key is the MLATs, or the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaties. So just this year, my President Ferdinand Marcos, came here and signed with India. The Philippines and India signed a mutual legal assistance treaty. So with that, we could cooperate by sharing digital evidence, for instance. So this is one way that countries could work on. You could work bilaterally with other countries to sign MLATs. Or if you have existing MLATs, those may be outdated already, given the pace of technology. So you could also encourage your governments, or the governments itself could examine their existing MLATs with other countries to ensure that the new landscape, the digital landscape, is captured in that. So those are the things where you could work regionally as well. The global norms would set the vision. Regional cooperation would come up with model laws to implement that vision, and your national systems should align essentially with what you've promised to do, what you've committed internationally when you sign those treaties. So,
Sure. And definitely given the pace of innovation, that's what we were talking before the session as well, the pace of innovation and pace of adoption, the way it is changing, it's becoming very difficult for diplomats and the policymakers to keep abreast with the changing paradigm of this technology. And every time that law has to test against that new emerging tech, which is changing a new use cases, new modus operandi, and we have to make sure that law is making sure that the right thing is getting sort of acknowledged by that. On that front, one is definitely improving the MLATs and improving the domestic laws and all those things. We have to improve that, but at the same time, we need to have domestic capabilities and the skill set getting evolved. So again, Melissa, just to double click on that part, how do you see and how are you approaching it? And in case you have any suggestions how we should approach the capacity building or incident response, those kind of things that we can enhance with the global cooperation and the diplomacy.
Thank you for that follow-up question, Atul. So, one is you can write this down in the agreements that you sign, or you could just come up with strategies like what we did in ASEAN to share information, to build capacities, and you could come up with some like centers for, with cybersecurity centers to ensure that the member states of regional organizations could be at par with each other, given the differing levels of the development economies in these countries. And then more than that, then you can do it bilaterally as well. You can sign up agreements on MOUs on capacity building or cooperation on cybersecurity. That's where diplomats come in also, because the diplomats negotiate. But it's not shouldn't just be diplomats. Everyone should have a voice. So we were talking about, Filippo was talking about PPP, private-public partnership. Diplomats should be there to ensure that the voices heard are not just the government's voice, but it should be a whole of society approach. Everyone should be in it, It's only when we all work together can we overcome the challenges cybersecurity faces. Right now, I believe we're still wrapping our heads around what's happening exactly, what is it. I think we couldn't really comprehend the extent of it, but it's good that I commend DSCI for starting talks like this. It's not being talked enough. So we should talk and we should all cooperate. Don't just expect the government to do it, but everyone should have a voice in it and everyone should be aware about their responsibilities. Because you're reaping the benefits of AI, but there should be another side to it. So please, everyone should think critically and see what your role should be in ensuring that AI is used ethically. It's for a better future.
Sure, and that's just one initiative to create a kind of a platform where we can talk openly. We should have more and more such platforms where we can exchange the thoughts around this cyber diplomacy and global cooperation on cyber, which is again a complex one, but yeah, definitely if we talk, probably we'll find out a way to enable it and actually implement it. As it's a complex thing, I'll come back to you, Aladdin. As a diplomat, what worry you most while you are in those diplomatic negotiations and all? From geopolitical situation and scenarios, different norms in the domestic ecosystem, and then we are talking about that harmonized global norms. What worry you most while you sit for those diplomatic engagements against the backdrop of cyber and the emerging tech, I'll say?
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry. I'm not all clear. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, so I'm saying against the backdrop of the emerging tech, as a diplomat, what worry you most while you are negotiating those harmonized norms internationally, while you have different and diverse norms and the policies and the regulations in the domestic ecosystems in all over the different countries?
Okay. I think what we would value more, we were talking about trust before, we would value security, of course, for all the stakeholders. I think the most important that has to transpire through these agreements, through the differences, that all stakeholders are sure that they can use this. And we were talking about fragmentation before of the data to make sure that does not happen, because that's a huge risk where we would not be able to access fragmentation, to make sure that the trust is there and that, I don't know if colleagues want to add on to that as well, but to make sure that the community is secured and that also, we were also talking before with Melissa about how it's evolving so quickly, how the attacks are more evolved, and how to respond to that with the law, with the policy. And Melissa, she is a lawyer, was suggesting that to keep DSCI agreements open, to have the possibility for the different governments to add on to the different possibilities. So I think to be flexible is an important part of this as a whole.
Sure.
Bless you. Bless you.
And again, cyber we are talking about, and emerging tech is playing a critical role refining and defining the cyber technology and the policies. So what do you see? What is that next one emerging tech that you see is going to define the overall diplomacy around cyber in next, say, 1 decade or so? What's your view on that?
I don't know if others want to start, but I'll jump in afterwards. Go ahead.
I mean, there are many, but I recently went to visit the National Quantum Mission here in India, which was a fascinating, just extremely interesting learning journey for me. And I think that's when I realized how big quantum is, both as an enabler, as a securer, but also a potential threat. So I think that could be one of the fields in which I see, somewhere down the line, this conversation might be looking completely different. We were already talking about teleportation being possible at this point. So, but we're now some years ahead. But I think that's a very fascinating field to follow, also from a security perspective.
Flipan, another thing I would like to touch upon the critical infrastructure side as well. So critical infrastructure and the global cooperation on the critical infrastructure protection is, again, very sensitive area. What's your views on that? Are you working on that, and how are you taking care of that side?
Absolutely. I think critical infrastructure is something that every country in our day and age really has to prioritize, and it's been made very clear that we need to define what are the critical services that we ought to defend and protect for our people. And Norway being a very, I would say, open country with an open geography and very open economy, not to say the least. We come from a very maritime background. We have a lot of OT security aspects to our infrastructure. We have, of course, in due time, passed very strict requirements for national providers of such essential services, including in energy, transport, health, water, and so on. And of course, as my co-panelist pointed to earlier, we are very tightly linked with the EU. So they have this EU NIS2 directive, which Norway has implemented very closely. So of course, we will always be working in tandem with the EU. However, we see that it is very difficult to actually implement it in a trust-based manner, because a lot of responsibility lies on the private sector in this regard. And it is very difficult when there has been a big vulnerability discovered or some major incident to actually be open about it so that we can mitigate it quickly, because it's a massive reputational risk for the companies that have been involved. And that is something that I think we still have a way to go in finding some solutions, maybe having like, I don't know, an industry union approach where you have an insurance against this to actually promote being open and transparent, because a lot of vulnerabilities and let's say, hacking situations have gone on for a long time before being disclosed. So again, we come back to the public-private collaborations that are at the core of this. We see that sharing threat intelligence, for example, is huge in the sense of critical infrastructure security. So rapid response and joint exercises as well, which we are already working very closely with in Europe, but also internationally to ensure. So I think, in general,
Sure. This threat intelligence sharing, and most of the time, the CERT-to-CERT computer emergency response team to collaborations between two countries, and sometimes at a regional level, that's actually helping a lot. And even in India, we have CERT-to-CERT collaboration with a couple of countries. Probably that's working out well, and this kind of thing is definitely help us mitigate the threats and attacks proactively. So definitely, thanks for that. And especially in critical infrastructure, that has to happen in more frequent and, I'll say, more structured way. So given the time in hand,
I just wanted to jump in. Was mentioned quantum technology. We were talking just before this panel, went back to also colleagues working in different spheres, back in Ottawa, back at the UN, and quantum technology came on everybody's lips. So I just wanted to reinforce that message. We agree that that's happening. We see the people in this room have different solutions. We were talking with a few of them, and there's so many happening and adapting and making this leap forward. All of these companies, all of you here are making this this world safer. We're going to be, I'm a trade commissioner, but so we're going to be, and I think all of our countries are going to be coming to I come back to the India AI Impact Summit, but we're going to bring a Canadian delegation. They're also going to bring delegation. We're going to be working together. We want to work also with the different people here in this room. So we've got Abhishek here. I don't know Abhishek. Abhishek is the Trade Commissioner at the Canadian the Trade Commissioner at the Canadian High Commission here in India, which helped me prepare today. Thank you so very much. But he's also the person that will help you find the links with the Canadian companies. Canada, India have very strong bonds. As we were mentioning, it is family, and we want to work with the companies here. Obviously, for our other nations also, but as we are in India, we're ready to do business, ready to do business with you. So I wanted to mention that also. That's my, my marketing pitch. Thank you.
Sure. So given the time in hand, I'll move to the last remarks. I'll try to club two things, and which one you want to pick up. So one is definitely, as one thing if we have to pick up, which must happen from cyber diplomacy point of view, and which is enabling global cooperation, what should be that thing? And another thing, as previously I have asked, one technology which is going to shape the next decade of cyber diplomacy. Any one of you can pick up and...
I can try and merge them and pick out, I would say, one thing in the field of emerging technology that we should really be focusing on. And I think that India is already doing that. And I think the illustration of that is the naming of the forthcoming AI Impact Summit. It has an impact, and we need to make sure that that impact is equitable. And I think that impact needs to be also, you know, there is a lot of asymmetric information, asymmetric access to the benefits, societal benefits of these technologies that we're talking about. I think that is really where we all need to come together and work on how do we make sure that these technologies that are so amazing actually reaches out to every single person and that they can use it in their daily lives in a way that is trustworthy, accountable. I mean, we're coming back to all of the things that we've been discussing in this panel, but actually it doesn't make sense to build a technology which is perfectly functioning and secure if nobody's going to use it. So I think that's actually bringing out those societal benefits. I think that is really, you know, democratizing access to it. Would be my one takeaway.
Perfect, sure.
I would echo that. As to be democratized, as to be secure, as to be equitable. The countries leading the efforts have to work as a multi-stakeholders. We see that with the UN. We have to be finding the same ground rules, working to achieve, to follow the pace as well. This is what's going to be difficult, but if we find a solution to implement this as we go, I think that's the way forward in the next coming years.
Melissa?
Well, as a lawyer, I'll reiterate what Aladdin said earlier. The technology has developed at such a fast pace in so little time, but the law has not come up or caught up with what's happened. I think that one thing that I see, you know, that should happen in the next few years would be a global compact that is signed by, if not all, then majority of the UN member states. That would be, you know, it's very hard because it changes a lot, but it should be vague enough, but still would provide a skeleton to give us a guide on how we should conduct our business when it comes to AI, digital and cybersecurity, cyber technology. And we should also have some model laws that would guide developing economies, developed economies, so that we're all on equal playing field. And on the technology side, on what new technology would be, it's hard because I think the sky's the limit, or your imagination is the limit to what AI could do now. Maybe, I think in the future it could even, you know, when I was younger, I would see movies with nannies that are robots. We could perhaps develop almost and people, or people like, who are run by AI. I think we're not far off from that. But as I said, sky's the limit. We're only limited by our imagination.
Sure, thanks a lot. And I'm seeing we are just 2 minutes left. So just I would like to conclude it. Definitely, everybody has that intent, and wherever we see all the friendly nations are coming together with that intent of collaborating and strengthening the cybersecurity posture of the cyberspace. With that intent, there are certain challenges, definitely, like diverse nature of the laws, regulation, policies that we have, diverse nature of, say, cyber literacy or digital literacy that we have, or cyber inclusion or digital inclusion that we have in different part of the globe. That's actually leading to various, and on top of it, the current geopolitical situation. So that's making it very complex. And another layer that is coming on top of it is dual nature of those technologies that we kept talking about in the last 45 minutes. So everything is making it a complex phenomena to come on a common ground. But at the same time, everybody wants to come on the common ground and protect the ecosystem so that it can be leveraged for the larger good of the ecosystem, whether it's a societal, economic, individual, all of those things. So this kind of platform probably is going to help us more to deliberate on that, and we are going to have more such discussions and deliberations to strengthen those, I'll say, narratives, where we'll find out a common ground to at least come up with some synergies and enable this kind of exchanges more and lead to some sort of common norms or common practices to strengthen the cybersecurity posture of the global cyberspace. With this, I'll stop here. And again, I'll thank you all of you to join us for this panel discussion. Looking forward to collaborating with you further on these discussions with maybe a larger group. And I am quite right on time. It's just 30 seconds left. So over to you. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
you.
moderator of the session. Very well summarized. And I would say it's been a very invigorating exchange of thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together and thank our esteemed panelists for a wonderful session. On behalf of the organizing team, just to make this moment a little more memorable, we'd like to present the mementos, and may I request the moderator of the session to kindly do the honors by presenting a memento to Ms. Philippa Sophia. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your such valuable inputs with us. Presenting a memento to Ms. Philippa Sophia. Thank you. Once again, requesting Mr. Kumar to now present a memento to Ms. Melissa Antelan. Thank you so much for bringing in such important inputs. And now we present a memento with a big thank you to Mr. Aladdin. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and sharing your such valuable inputs. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude our plenary session 2. We have had a huge amount of takeaways from this session, and I wish we had more time. We could have taken more interjections, but we can keep that for our networking breaks always. Thank you. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you once again. A heartfelt gratitude.